thank you for joining us. Today we have Lori Turnpaugh, who is a paraprofessional in our district. Good morning, Lori.
Good morning, Dr. Rao. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. So Lori has been a paraprofessional for 14 years here in the district, primarily at Buchanan. And she and I got to talking about how her job has evolved since the pandemic and since the return of school. So I thought that was interesting and asked Lori to join us to talk to us about how, Lori, how your position has evolved now that students are back in the classroom.
Well, the what hasn't really changed. I'm still doing the same thing. I'm still providing academic support, emotional learning support, and even some behavior support. That hasn't changed. But the where, the how, the who, that's all kind of changed a little bit. I'm no longer able to push into the classrooms due to honoring and complying with our social distance guidelines. That's just one more extra body that we have to account for. So now all of my work is done in a pulled out way. Mm-hmm. The who has changed. I can't meet with as many children as I used to meet with. When I would push in, I was able to do small group work. And now that I'm pulling out, I'm doing it in a shared space. So it has to be a one-on-one, again, to honor all of that physical distancing that we're trying to comply with.
Right. And when we talked about that, you talked about how the relationships have changed because now you're pulling kids out. Can you talk a little?
The relationships have changed, good and bad. Bad, I'm not as able to make as many relationships because I'm not seeing as many students. So if you're not one of our more vulnerable, needy students academically or emotionally, I might not get to touch base with you every day, and I might not be able to build that relationship. But then I guess the silver lining is the children that I am seeing, I'm really able to nurture that relationship because it's in that small private setting. So there's a real sense of safety and trust that is happening that we don't always see.
And what would you say is the biggest change professionally over the past year?
The biggest change for me professionally, I think, is trying to balance what is happening and maintaining the relationships, like not giving up who I am, not giving up the nurturer and the supportive cheerleader that I am. I want to be this cheerleader for these kids. It's my main objective to make our youngest learners fall in love with coming to school. If you learn something else along the line, that's awesome. But I want you to fall in love when you're coming to school. I think like many of our support staff, I've always seen my role as I said, the cheerleader, and not that one that's on the top of the pyramid in the spotlight, getting all that attention, but that cheerleader that's on the bottom, making you feel safe and letting you know if you fall, I'm going to be there to catch you. And I really feel like it's been a struggle trying to have that relationship, especially without the physical closeness that we're used to. But I'm doing it. I think I'm doing it.
Mm-hmm. So I know there are challenges, and we talked about challenges that you've seen from other support staff. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I feel fortunate that I know every day when I come to Buchanan, I'm going to be filling my position as a kindergarten para. But our building assistants aren't as fortunate. They're not sure. Sometimes they come into the building and they might be covering a Zoom for music because somebody's teleworking, or a teacher might be on quarantine and teleworking, and now all of a sudden you're covering a 5th grade class. And if I had to cover a 5th grade class, that takes me way out of my comfort zone. So there's this little bit of anxiety when you come in. Okay, what am I going to do today? Because we like to be prepared, and that's not always the case. There's not always time for that.
Right. And that is so important for our all of our staff to hear from you because, sometimes our support staff don't feel as appreciated as they should. And we know that they are the backbone of the work, sort of like you said, the cheerleader at the bottom who's holding up,
Yeah.
the whole group. So I want everyone to really listen to that and to make sure they thank a support staff member today. And so my last question is, what has been the most rewarding part of your work this year?
Again, I go back to those relationships. I mean, just being able to support, and not just kindergarten, I work hard to support the whole building and working on building these relationships with everybody, staff, teachers, students, kindergarten to fifth grade. And while it's different, it's still possible.
Well, I really appreciate your positive, sense of the work that you do and the work that so many people are doing. It brings a smile to me because you're just such a positive person, and you're the type of person I need to go talk to when I'm having a bad day. So thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you, Dr. Rao.